During the 4th of July holiday, my little cousin took a liking to throwing firecrackers at my car. It got so bad I had to patch my tires 4 separate times. My aunt and uncle just laughed it off, saying, "Why get so worked up over a kid?" So, I had an idea. I gave my parking spot to a Porsche Cayenne that was looking for a place to park. Sure enough, my cousin's firecracker toss hit the gas tank. A loud boom echoed through the lot. The Cayenne was history. I watched the whole thing unfold from my apartment window. My cousin, Kevin, stuffed a few M80s under the car's rear bumper, lit the fuses, and ran. The blast was way bigger than I expected, and it hit the gas tank dead on. A thick plume of smoke billowed from the back of the Porsche, and a small flicker of fire quickly grew into a raging inferno. My palms started to sweat, and I was about to rush down to help, but thankfully, the building's maintenance staff got there first with fire extinguishers. By the time they put it out, the Cayenne was a charred, unrecognizable wreck. The good news was nobody was hurt, and no other cars caught fire. Kevin had bolted as soon as the fire started, disappearing into our apartment building. I saw one of the maintenance guys recording video evidence on his phone while another was checking the vehicle's registration. Since the burnt Porsche was in my designated spot, I figured they'd be knocking on my door soon. I glanced back into the living room. Kevin's parents, my Aunt Susan and Uncle Rick, were laughing at something on their phones. My own parents were in the kitchen, busy cooking. No one had noticed the disaster outside. Kevin slipped back into the apartment, his shifty eyes scanning everyone in the room. He must have known he'd messed up big time because he didn't make a sound. He quietly tiptoed to a corner of the living room, pulled the rest of the M80s from his pockets, and dumped them into the trash can to destroy the evidence. After he walked away, I quickly grabbed the trash bag, wrapped it in some fire-resistant material, and got rid of the safety hazard. Kevin sat on the sofa, quiet as a mouse, looking at his pathetic, scared face. I didn't know whether to laugh or get angry. My old clunker wasn't worth much, and nobody cared when he was blowing up my tires. But a Porsche Cayenne? This could cost my aunt and uncle their life savings. When parents fail to teach their children a lesson, the world will do it for them. I had just bought a used Toyota before the holiday. My dad joked that we should light some firecrackers to celebrate, a suggestion I quickly shot down. It's an old local tradition here. You surround a new car with firecrackers and light them for good luck and prosperity. Of course, the custom is dangerous and mostly frowned upon now. Besides, our apartment complex is old, but you still see a few luxury cars parked around. Setting off fireworks for my beat-up Toyota would have been embarrassing. My aunt and uncle's family were visiting when my dad made that joke, and Kevin overheard him. From that day on, he made it his mission to throw lit firecrackers at my car. Whenever I caught him, he'd just grin and say he was celebrating my new car for me. Aunt Susan and Uncle Rick would just laugh. Look at Kevin, so polite. He's helping his cousin celebrate his new car. He's such a smart kid. He even remembered what his uncle said. They were essentially shifting the blame, implying my dad was the one who started it all and Kevin was just being thoughtful. I couldn't get mad at Kevin, so I had to swallow my frustration and pay for the damages. Over the holiday weekend, I patched my tires 4 times and still had to deal with the paint damage from the explosions. Today, when my aunt and uncle's family came over again, I saw Kevin from a distance, pulling a few M80s from his pocket and waving them at me tauntingly. Here we go again, I thought. I waited for them to go upstairs, then rushed down to move my car. It was our family's purchased spot, and my car was always parked there. I figured I'd just park it at the mall next door. It would cost me a few bucks in parking fees, but it was better than letting that little monster destroy it. Just as I started the engine, a brand new Porsche Cayenne drove past me. It was the second time it had circled the lot. The driver was clearly looking for a spot, but all the surface level ones were taken. An idea sparked in my mind. To me, a used Toyota and a Porsche Cayenne are worlds apart, but to Kevin, they were just 2 black cars with 4 wheels. He only recognized my parking spot. Even if I moved my car this time, he'd just do it again later. It was time to teach him a permanent lesson. I rolled down my window and flagged down the Cayenne driver. Hey, I'm heading out. You can have my spot. He was thrilled and gratefully accepted, pulling in smoothly. As I drove out of the complex, I silently prayed that he had good car insurance. I thought Kevin would, at most, damage the tires or scratch the paint. I never imagined it would escalate into a full-blown fire. My heart was pounding, and I sat at the dinner table feeling anxious. but after thinking it through, I realized there was no way this could be pinned on me, and I started to relax. My parents had been cooking all morning and had prepared a huge feast. My mom brought out a platter of steamed fish, smiling. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, before heading back to the kitchen to make a fruit platter. Uncle Rick put down his phone, immediately reached across the table, and snagged the best part of the fish, chewing it loudly. I frowned slightly. Even though we were close relatives, they acted way too entitled. My uncle is my dad's younger brother, and by tradition, he shouldn't have started eating before his older brother was seated, but both he and my aunt, who knew the rules, dug in without a care in the world. By the time my parents took off their aprons and sat down, every dish had been picked over. It was clear they had no respect for us. "Kevin loves shrimp, let him have more," Aunt Susan said, piling all 12 garlic butterflied shrimp onto her son's plate. Kevin ate greedily, his face smeared with grease, the car incident completely forgotten. "I want the calamari, too. It's all mine," he shouted, grabbing the entire plate and dumping it into his bowl. My dad laughed helplessly. "Whoa, buddy, you can't eat all that. Your cousin likes it too, leave some for him." Kevin just snorted. "If I can't finish it, I'll just throw it away." "He's not getting any." My parents' faces fell. Uncle Rick quickly tried to smooth things over. "Kids will be kids. He's just joking with his cousin, right, Kevin? Give your cousin a smile." Kevin pulled at the corners of his eyes and stuck his tongue out at me. Under the table, my fists clenched. My mom put a hand on mine and shook her head, signaling me to just let it go. My aunt and uncle had Kevin late in life and spoiled him rotten. He grew up to be a terror, what we'd call a brat. As a baby, he would scream his head off in any public place until they went home. If anyone commented, my aunt would snap back that all kids were like that. When he got a little older and we'd visit their house, Kevin would chase us out with a bamboo stick, yelling, "Get out, you poor losers, get out of my house." I always wondered where a kid learned about being rich or poor. My uncle must have been bad-mouthing us behind our backs, but whenever I asked my dad about it, he'd just sigh and shake his head. Since Kevin wouldn't let us visit their house, my aunt and uncle's family started coming to ours for holiday dinners. Every year, my parents would go all out and cook a huge meal. And every year, Kevin would ruin all his favorite dishes without a thought for anyone else. This year, he'd escalated to blowing up my car with firecrackers. I was at my breaking point. But my parents are peacemakers and always preached about keeping harmony in the family, so they just tolerated it. I took a deep breath and was about to pick up my chopsticks when the doorbell rang sharply. The property manager was here. I went to get the door. Outside stood the manager and 2 security guards, 3 people in total, blocking our doorway. The manager, a slick-looking middle-aged man, peered inside. "Does the 3rd parking spot from the left in front of Building 1 belong to you? The registration says Unit 503. "Yes, it does," I said. My parents came over to see what was going on. My aunt and uncle kept eating, acting like it had nothing to do with them. "What's happened?" my dad asked. The manager replied, "There was a vehicle fire just now. The car in your parking spot. The gas tank exploded and it caught fire. We've extinguished it, but the owner needs to assess the damages." My parents were shocked. "What? Our car caught on fire? How? It's a new car. There's no way it could have spontaneously combusted. It was likely caused by firecrackers," the manager said. "We have a video of the fire and we're checking the security cameras for suspects." Hearing the word firecrackers, my parents both turned to look at Kevin. This time, my aunt and uncle couldn't ignore it. They put down their chopsticks. My mom asked tentatively, "Susan, your son didn't set off any firecrackers in my son's parking spot, did he?" Aunt Susan slammed her hand on the table. "Don't you dare accuse us, Linda. My Kevin is a good boy. He never causes trouble. You have no proof, so don't you go blaming my son. Apologize to him right now." In contrast to his wife's aggression, Uncle Rick walked over with a placating smile. "Brother, Linda, don't get upset. They're checking the cameras, right? Let's just wait and see. It definitely wasn't my kid. I already talked to him, and he promised he wouldn't do it again. He didn't even have any firecrackers with him when we left the house today." He then made a show of patting Kevin's pockets, which were empty. My dad wiped his face. "Of course, Kevin's a good kid. He wouldn't cause such a huge problem. Your aunt was just worried and asked. Please don't take it the wrong way." Aunt Susan glared at my mom, her voice sharp. "Did you hear that? Apologize to Kevin." Now, I turned, walked to the trash can, and pulled out the bag. I dumped the M80s on the floor. The firecrackers from my cousin's pocket? I think you're looking for these. I saw him run in here in a panic and throw them in the trash. I looked up and stared directly at my aunt and uncle. The smile on Uncle Rick's face froze. Aunt Susan's face went pale. Suddenly, Kevin started shrieking. Those aren't mine. They're not mine. You're a broke liar. I'll kill you. I'll kill you. He charged at me, kicking my shins. Seeing me get attacked, my usually gentle mother transformed. She grabbed Kevin's arm and flung him 2 feet away. You touch my son again and see what happens. Kevin burst into tears, wailing, It hurts. It hurts. Aunt Susan's eyes turned red. She jumped in front of Kevin. How dare you touch my son? I'll have you arrested for child abuse. The tension in the room was about to snap. The property manager stepped in. Everyone, calm down. The security footage just came through. He downloaded the video to his phone, and we all crowded around to watch. It was from a camera on the side of the building. The Porsche Cayenne itself was blocked by another car, but my parking spot was clearly visible. A small figure appeared in the frame. We all held our breath. It was Kevin, sneaking up behind the car. He looked around to make sure no one was watching, then shoved several M80s under the rear bumper. He bent down, lit the fuses, and ran. The rest played out just as I had seen from my window, a loud bang, a plume of smoke, and then the car slowly being engulfed in flames. My parents, who hadn't seemed too concerned when they first heard about the fire, now looked horrified after seeing the footage. My dad broke out in a cold sweat, and my mom covered her mouth in shock. I glanced over to see my aunt and uncle's reaction, but Aunt Susan had already retreated to the couch. She was patting Kevin on the back, cooing, Don't cry, sweetie, they're just trying to scare you. My baby was with mommy the whole time. He didn't go anywhere. If they try to blame you, mommy will beat them up. Kevin, emboldened, balled his fists. Beat them up, beat them up. I couldn't believe it. With undeniable proof right in front of her, my aunt chose to live in denial. How long did she think she could let him get away with everything? The initial panic I felt watching the fire had faded. Now, I felt a strange sense of relief. After all, I hadn't lost any property. This incident was about to expose my aunt and uncle for who they really were. Uncle Rick nervously asked the manager, Were any of the surrounding cars damaged? No, just the one in your spot. Uncle Rick let out a long sigh of relief. My dad was anxious to get downstairs. Let us through. We need to go see the car. Uncle Rick grabbed my dad's arm, trying to downplay the situation. Now, let's be clear. Kevin didn't do it on purpose. He's just a kid. My dad's eyes widened. Are you serious? Now is not the time to be making excuses. We need to call the insurance company and get an estimate. We'll follow procedure. My dad was still trying to be civil, but I wasn't going to play along. I spoke up, my voice loud and clear for everyone to hear. Heh, just a kid? He's been throwing firecrackers at my car every day. I've had to patch my tires 4 times just this week. He specifically targets my parking spot. And you say it wasn't on purpose? Well, you've really screwed up this time. Let's see how you two are going to handle this mess. Uncle Rick glared at me, pointing a finger in my face. How dare you talk to your elders like that? Brother, Linda, you really need to teach this kid some respect. He has no manners. Then, turning his attention to the financial side, he said, If you have comprehensive insurance, it should cover it. If not, well, that's just your tough luck. My dad tried to shut me up, but even my mild-mannered parents were fuming at my uncle's dismissive attitude. The property manager and security guards, who were initially just doing their jobs, were now captivated by the family drama unfolding in the doorway. My mom was the first to react. What do you mean by that? If the insurance doesn't cover it, you're not going to pay? The mention of money made everyone, including the ostrich-like Aunt Susan, perk up and listen intently. Uncle Rick snorted. For that piece of junk you drive? The repair costs would be more than the car is worth. I'll give you $1,000. Take it or leave it. My parents' faces turned grim. The expressions on the faces of the manager and guards were even more priceless. I saw them exchange glances and whisper to each other. A piece of junk? $1,000 wouldn't even buy the logo on that car. They were clearly enjoying the show, but my parents and my aunt and uncle were too caught up in their argument to notice. My dad said through clenched teeth, Rick, you've really come up in the world, haven't you? Making good money now, and you think you can just toss your own brother $1,000 and call it even? The cost of the damages is not for you to decide. Leo, tell him how much it's going to be. All eyes turned to me. I pulled out my phone and did a quick search for the price of a Porsche Cayenne. Probably around $100,000. I said casually. A dead silence fell over the room. Everyone was stunned. Aunt Susan let out a shrill scream. $100. 000? You must be insane. Uncle Rick put a hand to his forehead and shook his head, looking at us with a hint of pity. My parents just looked bewildered, glancing from me to my aunt and uncle. Kevin, though he didn't understand what $100, 000 meant, sensed the shift in power. He hopped off the couch and ran to hide behind his dad, smirking at me. Uncle Rick sneered. Brother, I know you're having a tough time financially, but you can't scam your own family. I knew it. My nephew knew his car would get blown up, but he kept parking it there. So this was your plan all along? Aunt Susan's voice dripped with disgust. Rick, I told you not to associate with these poor relatives. Now look, they're trying to rip us off. Kevin chimed in happily. Their clunker isn't even worth as much as my dad's watch. Shut up, you broke losers. I couldn't believe this is how they saw us. Those words hit a nerve with my dad. He was shaking with anger, the veins on his neck bulging. My dad always said my uncle's family had gotten rich but had forgotten where they came from. Years ago, my grandfather worked at a chemical plant. When he retired, a position opened up. The plant wanted to hire my dad because he had a college degree, but my dad had already found another job, so he gave the position to my uncle, who only had a high school diploma. As luck would have it, several managers retired due to health issues, and my uncle quickly climbed the ladder to become the director of procurement. It was a lucrative position, full of kickbacks from suppliers and skimmed bonuses from his subordinates. Soon, my uncle had a new car and a house in a good school district. The only thing missing was a child, which he and my aunt didn't have until much later. Our family used to be comfortably off, but times got tough. After the pandemic, my dad's company went under. He was too old to find a new job and had to take on odd jobs to make ends meet. I had just graduated and didn't have much money, so I bought the used Toyota as a commuter car. Uncle Rick never missed an opportunity to mock me for it. My dad always told me to stay on good terms with my uncle, saying he was a director now and we might need his help someday. It's how things work in a small town. You rely on your network of family and friends, but no matter how tight money got, we never thought of scamming him. My uncle's family, on the other hand, was always on guard, as if we were leeches. Now, Kevin's firecracker obsession had finally blown the lid off everything. Only I remained calm. I glanced at the price on my phone again and repeated, "Yep, it's $100. 000. Uncle Rick laughed, a mix of anger and disbelief. Haha, being sick isn't the problem. Being poor sick is. Why don't you tell me how a used Toyota gets a damage estimate of $100,000? The property manager, who had been silently watching the show, suddenly snapped back to reality. A Toyota? Who said anything about a Toyota? The car that burned was a Porsche Cayenne. His words hit like a thunderclap. My aunt and uncle instantly fell silent. The argument stopped. Everyone scrambled to get downstairs. There, in my parking spot, sat the charred remains of a Porsche Cayenne. My usually arrogant aunt and uncle were finally starting to panic. Uncle Rick turned to my dad, his voice trembling. Brother, this is your parking spot, isn't it? How could another car be parked here? My dad was just as stunned. I don't know. He turned to me. Leo, where's your car? I shrugged. Hey, you can't blame me for this. I never said my car was parked in my spot. The manager found the spot registered to our unit and just assumed the burned car was mine. Just then, the owner of the Cayenne arrived. He saw the state of his car and exploded. Who blew up my car? I'm going to kill them. He spotted me in the crowd, and a look of confusion crossed his face. Hey, aren't you the kid who gave me his parking spot? What are you doing here? The pieces clicked into place for my aunt and uncle. It was you, Aunt Susan said, her voice shaking. You need to explain what's going on. I feigned innocence, slapping my forehead. Oh, man, I drove to the mall to buy something and completely forgot to drive my car back. Whoops, you went to the mall, but you forgot to bring back what you bought. Aunt Susan pressed. Not buying it. Yep, I said. My words claimed it was an accident, but my expression screamed. I did it on purpose. My parents, now understanding the full picture, were no longer tense. In fact, my mom let out a small laugh. The Cayenne owner watched the security footage and the video of the fire. The evidence was irrefutable. No matter how much my aunt and uncle tried to deny it, it was pointless. Uncle Rick, who had been so aggressive with us, was now meek and subservient to the can owner. It's all a misunderstanding. A big misunderstanding. My son is just a kid. He doesn't know any better. He was just playing with firecrackers and it was an accident. Look, can't we just let the insurance handle it? The can owner turned to my aunt and uncle, his gaze finally settling on Kevin. How do you people raise your kid? Shoving firecrackers under someone's car? Today he's blowing up cars. Tomorrow he'll be setting fire to houses and killing people. This was probably the first time in his life Kevin had ever been yelled at. He looked terrified, clutching his mother's sleeve and trembling. Aunt Susan immediately went into protective mode. Hey, he's just a kid. What does he know? He didn't do it on purpose. She then turned to my parents. Brother, Linda, say something, help us out here. It's your fault for letting someone else park in your spot and getting this man's car destroyed. Normally, my parents would have tried to de-escalate, to keep the peace, but today's fight had shown them my aunt and uncle's true colors. They stood back and watched coldly. I decided to chime in. Aunt Susan, what are you talking about? I would never want to cause trouble for anyone. Sure, Kevin has blown up my car 7 or 8 times since the holiday started, but Uncle Rick promised me he wouldn't do it again. I believed my uncle was a man of his word, so I gave up my spot out of pure kindness. Before I could finish, Aunt Susan rushed to shut me up. It wasn't 7 or 8 times. It was only a few times. Sir, don't listen to this kid. My son was trying to blow up his cousin's car, not yours. The can owner's eyes widened. Oh, great. So he's a repeat offender. That's it. Nobody's going anywhere. I'm not just calling my insurance. I'm calling the police. The kid might be too young for jail, but I'm suing you too, his parents, for enabling him and for intentional destruction of property. No, 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 no. My aunt and uncle's voices rose in a panicked duet. Please, don't call the police. We'll discipline him. I promise. Kevin, come here and apologize to the nice man. They smiled obsequiously, bowing repeatedly. Aunt Susan grabbed Kevin's hand, trying to force him to apologize to the can owner. Kevin's face turned beet red. He suddenly yanked his hand away from his mother's. Like a little torpedo, he charged at the can owner, slamming into his side and giving him a hard shove that made the man stumble backward. You're lying about me, Kevin screamed. I'll kill you. My mom said it wasn't me. Liars should be beaten up. He started kicking wildly at the man's legs. Aunt Susan was horrified and quickly scooped Kevin up. The can owner, who had looked so dapper when he first arrived, was now a complete mess. His suit pants were covered in dusty shoe prints, his hair was disheveled, and his face was pale with shock. He took a few steps back and angrily pulled out his phone to make a call. Seeing that there was no turning back, Aunt Susan's lower lip began to tremble. She finally turned on her son. Kevin, how could you hit someone? Is that what Mommy taught you? Kevin straightened his back defiantly. Mommy said that people who lie about me should be beaten up. He lied about me. He's a bad guy. I have to beat him up. The words Aunt Susan had used to coddle her son had finally come back to bite her. I couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. The property manager and the other onlookers, who had been enjoying the show, could no longer contain their amusement. It was infuriating when Kevin was acting out, but seeing this double-edged sword turn on his own parents was incredibly satisfying. Uncle Rick, who valued his image above all else, was blushing from his neck to his ears. Aunt Susan, oblivious to the fact that her family had become a laughingstock, was still trying to reason with her son. No, sweetie, you can't hit people. You were the one who did something wrong this time. You need to apologize to the man. Say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do it. Please forgive me, sir. Kevin stared at his mother, stunned. Then, he broke free from her grasp, bent down, took off one of his shoes, and hurled it at her face. You're lying about me too. You're a bad guy too. I'll beat you up. Beat you up. The shoe hit Aunt Susan so hard she saw stars and stumbled to her knees. Kevin took off his other shoe, grabbed her by the hair, and started hitting her over and over again in the temple. The scene descended into chaos. Everyone rushed to pull Kevin away. Once the shoe was pried from his hand, Uncle Rick slapped him hard across the face. Kevin fell to the ground like a leaf in the wind. You little monster, how dare you hit your mother? Uncle Rick, his face purple with rage, stood over his wife protectively. He grabbed Kevin by the hair, lifted him up, and started slapping him back and forth with his massive hands. He wasn't holding back. After just a few slaps, Kevin's face was swollen. Kevin screamed and cried, but he couldn't escape his father's grip. He was sobbing so hard that one of the slaps caught him with his mouth open, and he spat out a mouthful of blood and a few baby teeth. Aunt Susan, holding her throbbing temple, finally stood up. Seeing her son being beaten, she was torn between pity and anger. She just turned her face away and said nothing. Uncle Rick unleashed all his fury on Kevin. "I'll teach you to hit your mother. I'll teach you to blow up cars. You don't even know what kind of car it is and you dare to blow it up. You can't recognize the car, but you can't recognize the license plate either? I'm going to kill you, you idiot." He kept hitting until his hands were sore, then threw Kevin to the side. Kevin's voice was hoarse from crying, but no one paid him any attention. Finally, the Cayenne owner shouted, stopping the whole spectacle, "That's enough. My insurance agent and the police are on their way. I'll wait for the insurance company to determine if this was an accident or intentional. You'll pay what you owe, and if someone needs to be arrested, they'll be arrested." My mom didn't understand how car insurance worked. She whispered to me, "Does it matter if it's accidental or intentional?" I explained, "If the insurance company rules it an accident, they'll cover the full cost. But if they determine it was intentional vandalism, they'll pay very little. The owner will have to negotiate compensation with the person responsible, or even sue them." "Oh," she said, "well, with the security footage and you as a witness to him constantly blowing up your car, they should definitely rule it as intentional, right?" I was about to nod when I saw Uncle Rick's ears twitch. He turned and started walking toward me.